I've said many times that the universe is a game for immortal beings and is a created game space, but never had an appropriate analogy until today. The Voyager probe has either left the solar system, is outside the bubble that's around the sun, or is about to. It's 11 billion miles out. And what it detected there was bubbles of magnetism. And what these bubbles are doing is catching cosmic rays, spinning them around and sending some of them onto the sun and some of them away. And since that's in the news, I might be able to make what I'm about to say a little more real. Living in a human body, one does not have the perceptions to see what's really occurring here. One of the main aspects of games is there's a ball of one kind or another, and a goal, and a purpose. And the purpose is to defeat the other side and win the game by superior manipulation of the ball. Now, since we're dealing with immortal, all-powerful beings and many, 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 many quadrillions of them in one single game, what would the game be like, or its complexity, to satisfy beings like that? So imagine, I'll start with this single solar system. If the diameter is 22 billion miles, that each of these magnetic bubbles, which is the way it was perceived by Voyager, because Voyager was designed by man to send back data, three-dimensional data, so that we can perceive it with our three-dimensional perceptions. So I would say what Voyager's detecting as a magnetic bubble is a game player. So no matter what the size of these game players is, and I imagine they're not that big, you have a 22 billion mile diameter sphere of game players catching balls in the form of cosmic rays, which is an influence that was sent at us from someone else, like a ball being thrown to first base. Decisions being made by this vast number of game players, and the cosmic rays sent back into the center to influence the sun. That was the aggregate of all their decisions on which vibration, cosmic ray influence to send into the central location, which is then rebroadcast out to locations which we perceive as round planets. And as game players, we have to deal with what's dealt out of the sun. And in our current position as game players on planet Earth, we don't have much of a control over what happens to us. This would be vaguely alluded to in astrology, that there is some kind of influence from the heavens this aggregate of game desire is rebroadcast from the central location to the planets, received by the planets, and then rebroadcast by the planets to other planets, making the game more complex. And the other aspect of the magnetic bubble game player is, if he doesn't like the cosmic ray or agree with what the message is, he sends it out away from this solar system back out into the larger game of the universe. And does he do this with an intention to change something else far away, or is it just a matter of getting rid of it? I don't know. But this is the level of complexity of the game. I keep calling it a game. It's on many levels, which this is just an analogy using the atomic theory that we use on this planet, that things are made of particles and waves. So if you take this kind of behavior on a universal scale with theoretically an infinite amount of galaxies containing an even larger amount of stars, planets, with gazillions of players, that is the game of this universe. And this universe had a start point. It will endure and have a stop point. And right next to it are, I think, 12 other games in a pack. There may be 24. And the rules can be completely different in a universe. And when a universe game is ended, there's a discussion about how it went and how it could be made more enjoyable, more interesting, and then a new game is started. And that's been the history of the beings who create universe games. Has been for quite a while. And you are a participant in these games, have been, always will be. But until now, I've never had sort of an in-depth analogy of the scale of the thing. A parallel aspect to this is everything in the universe was created by a being. So in a way, is his creation, is his property, is imbued with his vibrations, I guess you could say. And the only person who talks about this is Meher Baba, who talks about the universe as a living aspect of God, or a supreme being, that all of this universe is slowly leaked out and became the monster it is today. One of the ideas is that matter, energy, space, and time are here to serve and are happy to serve. They were created to be useful. And the space consists of particles of space. It's not one big homogeneous thing. And the particles of space are here and willing to serve. And a lot of them have been waiting a long time to be useful. And one aspect of fast travel is if you communicate with the residual beingness of space, which is happy to serve. You can ask it to get out of the way, and it will. Another aspect of that here locally is all those small moons and asteroids around the solar system are lonely and waiting to serve. They're like nothing better than to have space pirates come and land on them and hide and mine and do things. It will be very exciting for them. It's actually very dark out there. We see photographs of asteroids and small moons, and they're well lit in the photographs. I think they're time exposures, but it's actually quite dark. And the matter, energy, space, and time is waiting for us to get it together, to get out there so we can play in the solar system once more. Now, as a student of the conscious and mystery schools, I've gone out from this planet and validated or said hello to and acknowledged the matter, energy, space, and time for an unbelievable distance around here. I went through the outer solar system. Didn't go to Mars. Maybe I should have. Validated all the mess in space out there, and I didn't run into any beings of any kind. Although when I was a child, the Russian mission to Phobos was live on TV, and I was watching it. And something came up from the planet and either hit the probe or spun it, because I saw it on TV. I saw it coming up, and I thought it was an ICBM because it was long and thin. And this is the only existing photograph of it. I actually saw it happen, and then the next day they denied that anything had happened, and they dragged up the Russian scientists, and they said, we're very sorry, we made a mistake in our calculations, and it's ruined the mission. But, this is from the Norm Bergerund book, Ringmakers of Saturn. So, I forgot to draw a by and look for those guys. Anyway, I went up and validated all the space between us and the nearby galaxies, and then I went as far out as the Hubble telescope has perceived and validated and communicated to the space and the matter out there, and it's ready to serve. It's a happy place for us to explore. When you're traveling in that matter, you can't be seen, but your memories can be seen, amazingly enough. I didn't run into anybody or any machinery. Nobody attempted to communicate with me. So, in my opinion, the space around us is pretty clean for hundreds of millions of light years. On the other hand, I wasn't looking for anybody. I was looking at the space and the materials. This is the only other public photograph of the spacecraft which stopped the Russian Phobos probe. This looks approximately like what I saw. And this was seen by the optical and the infrared camera, and apparently in the optical picture you can see the surface of Mars underneath this object. They tried to pass this off as the shadow of Phobos, but you can see, if you have a real photograph, an object, and then 3D dimensionally down to the surface of the planet. So, Ringmaker's data. So why am I telling you these things? Are they going to help you save the world? Possibly, but one of the thrusts of the fourth way schools is to teach the students to think in new categories. And that's what I'm trying to do here in an interesting way. I have a series of lectures on the fourth dimension, and they're connected to this in some small way. We only have three-dimensional perceptions, but the solution to time as the fourth dimension is we move through time. And just as organic life lives on the surface tension between space and a planet, the laws where two mediums meet are slightly different. And organic life on this planet is only as deep as the roots of the trees and the tops of the trees. You get a few exceptions. Birds fly above, fish swim below, but it's actually very thin compared to the thickness of the planet. So a person as an electromagnetic bubble manifesting three-dimensionally in a body. The reason it's like it is this is the center line between the past and the future. So we live 50% with an eye to the future, 50% with an eye to the past. We can see and hear a little bit into the future and the past. This is how we deal with it. We are stuck in the eternal now. And you notice if someone stops breathing, they stop passing through time with us, and that inhalation is the work of passing through the fourth dimension, crawling like a worm. And when someone stops breathing, they begin to be in the past as a being, and their body begins to look strange to us, and it passes away. It's interesting that that is the phrase for it. He passed away. Now I can't show you the back of my hand. I can see it now, you can't. To show you the back of my hand, I have to turn it through time, which is the fourth dimension. And by turning it through that other dimension, there is the other side of it. Dan Winter has said that time is rotating charge, or an attraction like static electricity or magnetism or gravity, and we're caught in that rotation of time by a superior attractive force, no matter what it is. And using this mechanism, you can't see the back of my hand without rotating it through the fourth dimension. And if these things were slightly out of phase with each other, or always facing each other, they can never see what's on the other side without that. And this is where the reptilians are. They are just slightly out of time lock with our now, and we can't see them. It's like if someone is always behind you, you will never be able to see them. Very simple. This is the fourth dimensional actuality of the guessing that the reptilians are multi-dimensional beings, or are in the heavens, between the heavens. They're just slightly out of time lock with us in the fourth dimension of time, which we can barely perceive because we only have three-dimensional perceptions, not four. And if they have four-dimensional perception, they would be like eye-sighted people in the midst of blind men, not magicians. And I think personally that the modification to the human gene, where the top part of it has two pairs that are locked together, is disabling our ability to perceive the fourth dimension. There's a historical phrase that humanity was blinded by Zeus. If you read all of the stories of the Greek gods, every Greek god has one story where he appeared in his reptilian form. And that's usually pretty well hidden. So I think that is the situation. George Gurdjieff said that if you take a human brain and turn it upside down and look at it, the pineal gland looks like a miniature version of the two large lobes that we have now, left and right lobes of the brain. And his theory is that at one time that was as large as, those two hemispheres were as large as the ones we have now. And that was the four-brained being that he talks about. And in the case of humanity enslaved, that was genetically modified to be the little pea-sized creature it is now. The Egyptian pharaohs had the little reptilian or snake coming out of their headband. And what I think that represents is a religion / philosophy. The galaxy, when you look at it at one time of the year, it looks like a snake swallowing its own tail, which is where that image comes from. And the fall of civilization, notwithstanding, whenever that was, pre-flood or pre-alien invasion a few thousand years ago, forced back into a primitive state, it must have been quite exciting for people who had bows and arrows and chariots to discover the calendar, and that the universe began to make sense in that it seems to rotate regularly. The planet rotates regularly. The seasons come regularly, and then expanding that up into the precession of the equinoxes, and say that the Earth seems to be in some kind of cycle that's regular, and then discovering the galaxy, and that the galaxy spins. And I think that's as far as they got. But that would bring a tremendous security that a seeming random, dangerous universe has some order to it. And the next logical conclusion was that it was created or ordered by a god. But this is matter, energy, space, and time thinking, where everything's done with effort. Universes are created easily with the wish or whim of an electromagnetic being. And these concepts have been being taught to mankind since the fall. And it's been an effort by short-sighted, greedy, psychotic, or just game players to keep the public from knowing about these things. And the people of planet Earth have from now till 2035 to figure this out and cast off their chains. George Gurdjieff said that the electromagnetic aspect of higher forces, or the God that created this universe, would be the solution to man's problem, with it manifesting through all individual men. And we now have that in the form of the internet and all the electromagnetic communication that's now possible. That's never happened before in the recent history of mankind. And you could look at this electromagnetic freedom as the harbinger of the end of slavery. Rodney COLIN, Fourth Way teacher, said the final civilization in the grouping of 8 that we are experiencing, which started from the Arabic civilization's information being input into the Western world, would be called the electromagnetic civilization. And he predicted it before it was actually a reality. And here we are. These big changes are always affected through a few active men, women. If you think it might be you, then it is you, because everyone else is not thinking. It's them. The success of these men is not because of superhuman greatness of spirit. although that would help. It's because they are on the brink of the precipice of a change being caused by cosmic forces, and are therefore unstoppable.